They say money can buy everything in this world, except education. But let me tell you, there are things not even education can fix. For example, have you ever seen a man in a fancy suit, worth millions, who couldn't even ask for a glass of water in English during an international meeting? Yeah, that happens, and usually it happens to people who are either too stubborn or just plain unlucky. And in this case, our man was both. Mr. Arthur Menezes. Arthur was one of those rich men who rise out of nowhere. A rancher, the kind who spent his youth under the scorching sun and with dirt under his nails, until his cattle turned into gold, and that gold turned into real estate. He had no college degree, no overseas education, but he had plenty of money, and for him, showing the zeros in his bank account was enough to make the world bow, and the world usually did, but not that afternoon. That day, in a lavish meeting room smelling like expensive coffee and fresh wood polish, Arthur found himself brought to his knees by his own ignorance. The meeting was with foreigners, men and women with eyes so blue and cold it gave you chills just to look at them. They came from New York and London, dressed in tailored suits and fake polite smiles. They spoke in twisted sentences, words like snakes wrapping around your legs if you didn't understand. Arthur, who ruled everything on home soil, looked more lost than a blind man in a shootout. Beside him were his assistants, sharply dressed and well-paid, flashing polished smiles like luxury car salesmen. But when it was time to translate, to explain, to solve the problem, none of them could even remember how to say to be. Arthur was sweating bullets. He felt the weight of foreign eyes beginning to notice something was wrong. Every second stretched like an eternity. The silence screamed louder than a market brawl. Now you might ask, where was the translator? Well, life's funny like that. The official translator was stuck in traffic, unreachable by phone. And people out there still believe that money solves everything. Arthur was already thinking of giving up, walking out with shame written all over his face, when the door creaked open ever so slightly, the kind of sound that only exists in big company buildings. And then she walked in. A small, skinny girl with plain clothes and her hair tied back in a modest ponytail. Her name was Anna, daughter of the janitor, who had worked for the company for over 20 years. Anna had no luxury, no money, but she had something no one else in that room did. Courage. "Excuse me, Mr. Arthur, sorry to interrupt. My mom left her purse here earlier. Can I just grab it real quick?" Arthur was about to snap at her, speaking in Portuguese in his irritation. At that moment, the foreigners exchanged confused looks, clearly wondering what was going on. Anna noticed and smiled shyly. Then she repeated the same phrase, but this time in such clean and fluent English that it sounded like music to everyone's ears. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Arthur. My mother forgot her purse here earlier. May I quickly get it, please?" The whole room froze. Arthur's expression turned to pure shock. The girl, who everyone knew only in passing, the one who wandered the halls with a mop and bucket, now spoke like someone raised across the ocean. Even the impatient foreigners cracked surprised smiles. It felt like a prank, the kind you see on TV on a lazy Sunday afternoon. But it wasn't. Arthur stared at Anna for a few life-changing seconds, and in that exact moment, the English illiterate millionaire realized he had something more valuable than money standing right in front of him. A chance to turn things around. With a raspy voice, trying to hide the mix of surprise, embarrassment, and relief, he said, "Anna, sweetheart, stay here. I think you just showed up at the perfect time. If you love a good story, hit that like button and subscribe, or you'll miss what happens next. And believe me, you have no idea how big of a mess this girl just walked into. You ever notice how sometimes the most unexpected solution comes from where no one's looking, like a poor man's fix? It might not look like much, but it gets the job done." And that day, in the fancy boardroom with a city view, packed with stiff-collared foreigners and impatient frowns, the solution walked in wearing flip-flops and hand-me-down clothes. Anna stepped forward slowly, still cautious, her eyes darting nervously around the table. The tension in the room was thick. Arthur cleared his throat and asked in a low, nearly whispered voice, "Anna, "Do you really speak English? Or did you just memorize that line?" She smiled shyly and replied softly in Portuguese, "I really do, Mr. Arthur. My mom always said education was the only thing she could give me, so I made the most of it." Arthur raised an eyebrow, impressed. It wasn't the time to doubt. Things couldn't get worse anyway. He took a deep breath and motioned to the chair beside him, signaling for Anna to sit. Everyone in the room watched, dumbfounded. "Sit here with me, girl. Translate everything those folks are saying. Don't leave anything out, you hear?" Anna nodded quickly and sat down with the poise of someone who had done it all her life. The frail janitor's daughter was now the center of attention among millionaires and foreign executives. One of them, the tallest and most arrogant, with a sharp beard and a blue tie, spoke again, visibly impatient. Anna turned immediately to Arthur. "He says they've wasted enough time. They want a final answer on the company buyout, but he thinks you're stalling." Arthur clenched his fists under the table. Their offer was good, more money than he'd ever seen in his life, more than he'd ever need. But there was one problem: his pride, the kind forged through sweat and sunburns. And now, right at this moment, he was depending on a girl he barely knew to determine his future. Before he could respond, the tall man kept talking. Anna blushed, looked down in discomfort, and hesitated. "Speak up, girl. Don't stall," Arthur pressed. He said you're too unprepared to handle something this big, that people without formal education will never understand the true value of business. He said, with or without you, they'll buy everything. It's just a matter of when, now or when you go bankrupt. Arthur's face turned red like burning coals. Anger surged through his chest so fast he could barely breathe. He looked at Anna, and for the first time saw something he hadn't noticed in anyone else in his flattery-filled company. This girl was beside him not for money, but because she had nothing to lose. He took a deep breath and looked at Anna with deep, almost fatherly seriousness. "Anna, tell those fancy suit folks I may not have education, diplomas, or any of those shiny things they brag about overseas, but I've got one thing they can never buy: my word, and my word is not for sale." Anna inhaled deeply, turned to the foreigners, and began translating. She spoke with firmness, clarity, her tone unwavering. Gone was the shy girl. In her place was someone unshakable. When she finished, the room went quiet. The big guy in the blue tie shifted awkwardly in his seat, while the others whispered among themselves. "What are they saying now, Anna? Tell me!" "They're discussing. They're confused by your decision. They didn't expect anyone to turn down that kind of money. They think you're bluffing." Arthur let out a bitter laugh and muttered, more to himself than to anyone else, "People like that think the world revolves around money, girl. But sometimes you gotta say no, just to remind them that money can't buy a man's honor." Anna smiled gently and whispered, "Or a woman's honor either, Mr. Arthur." He looked at her with surprise, realizing for the first time the strength hidden inside such a simple, seemingly fragile girl. Anna had a spark in her eye that only comes from those who grow up watching their mothers scrub other people's floors. The meeting ended without a deal, and as the foreigners left the room, one of them turned back to Anna, respectfully nodded, and said something in English only she understood. Arthur caught that moment and asked curiously, "What did he say to you, girl?" Anna smiled, now more confident, and replied, "He said I should have been negotiating from the start, that I'm worth more than all those men combined." Arthur went silent. That phrase hit him like thunder on a clear day. He had spent his life thinking money fixed everything, but now he realized some things money could never buy, things you only see when life puts you in surreal situations. And that day, the strange situation was this: a millionaire who couldn't speak English being saved by the humble daughter of a janitor. If that's not fate, then I don't know what is. But Anna held a secret even bigger than her gift for languages. And what was about to unfold would shake Arthur Menezes' world far more than any business meeting ever could. Yeah, the world turns, and sometimes it turns fast. But there are people who, even with the world spinning right in front of them, insist on pretending it's all standing still. That's exactly what happened with Artur Menezes after that meeting. The man could have walked out transformed, recognizing Anna's talent, rethinking his worldview. But no, he did what many people do when they feel threatened by what they can't understand. He acted like nothing had happened. That very afternoon, right after the foreigners left the company, Anna politely said goodbye. She told Artur she was going downstairs to look for her mother, who was likely sweeping the second-floor hallways. Artur nodded quickly, gave her a short wave, almost impatient. "Thank you, Anna. You can go." And the moment she left, his face tightened. He stayed there, staring at nothing, breathing deeply, trying to make sense of how he, Artur Menezes, had just been saved by a girl who earned minimum wage. One of the advisors came over, chuckling awkwardly. "Phew, boss. What a stroke of luck that girl was here today, huh?" Artur shot him a piercing look that shut him up instantly. He didn't like feeling weak, even less, feeling dependent. Deep down, he was battling something new, relief for being helped, and shame for needing it. That night, Artur went home quieter than usual. The mansion felt bigger, emptier. Even the expensive whiskey he usually sipped before bed had no taste. He sat on the porch, as he did every evening, looking out at the perfectly groomed garden, where motion lights lit up the grass like ship beacons. But his thoughts were far away. "Smart girl," he thought. "But can I really trust her? What if she just memorized a few fancy phrases? Maybe she didn't even know what she was translating." He started making excuses, trying to rationalize the irrational. He called the HR department and asked for the employee file. He wanted everything: full name, age, where she studied, if she was on scholarship, if she had a clean record. It was as if he was searching for a flaw to justify how unsettled he felt, but the file came back spotless. Ana Beatriz Santos Silva, 22 years old, scholarship student at a top public school, top of her class. Learned English on her own, watching subtitled movies, listening to music and studying online. Tried to get a federal university scholarship, missed it by a fraction of a point. Worked part-time as an English tutor in a community project. No police record, no complaints, not a single red flag. Too perfect to be true, Artur thought. The next morning, as he arrived at the company, he walked straight past the lobby to the elevator. Near the elevator doors, the janitor, Donna Rosina, Anna's mother, was kneeling, scrubbing the baseboards with care. Artur paused, looked at her. She looked up with a timid smile. "Good morning, Mr. Artur." He hesitated for a moment, like he was about to say something, but instead just gave her a dry nod and stepped into the elevator. He didn't mention Anna, didn't ask a thing. You see, denial is easy. What's hard is accepting that the world is changing, that power is shifting hands, and that knowledge doesn't live only with those who can afford it anymore. At lunchtime, it happened again. One of the managers suggested calling Anna back to help with a new video conference meeting. Artur replied without hesitation. "No need. I've handled it. We're not selling anything for now. But boss, it might be smart to strike while the deal's hot." I said no, and that's the end of it. Shut it down, just like that. Later, walking past the break room, he heard laughter. It was Anna teaching two interns how to pronounce an English tongue twister. Her laugh was light, almost childlike, and something about that sound bothered Artur deeply. Was it envy? Anger? Fear? He didn't even know. In his mind, something twisted was forming, as often happens when pride mixes with insecurity. He thought that if he ignored it all, things would go back to normal, that Anna would go back to being invisible. But here's the thing. What's been seen can't be unseen. And fate is stubborn. And Anna, without knowing, had just stirred up a hornet's nest far bigger than she imagined. But nothing she had faced before would prepare her for what she was about to discover, all because of one simple letter forgotten in her mother's closet. Some people spend their entire lives cleaning up other people's messes and still manage to keep more dignity than a lot of men in suits ever will. Donna Rosina was one of those people. quiet, discreet, always with her eyes lowered and her steps small, but a head full of stories she'd never told a soul. And it was in one of those silences that Anna stumbled onto something she was never meant to find. It was Wednesday, late afternoon. Rain began tracing faint lines down the small apartment window where Anna lived with her mother. The smell of fresh brewed coffee filled the air as Donna Rosina folded dish towels in the kitchen cabinet. Anna had just gotten home from work, her mind still lit up with the memories of the meeting she had saved 2 days earlier. She felt strange, like she had accidentally opened a door no one ever dared to touch. "Oday, Mom, why didn't you ever tell me you knew English?" she asked, laughing, as she kicked off her soaked shoes. Donna Rosina froze for a second, fingers still holding a towel with little guinea fowl printed on it. The smile faded from her thin lips. "Because I don't, sweetie. But you understand a little, right?" "No, Anna, not a word. I barely know how to write in Portuguese properly." Anna realized she had hit a sensitive spot. She changed the subject, but that uneasy feeling lingered in the air, like a stubborn scent that refuses to leave. Hours later, while searching her mother's wardrobe for an old notebook, Anna bumped into a cardboard box tied with twine. It was heavy, full of yellowed papers, VHS tapes, faded photo albums. "Mom, can I look at this?" "Just old stuff, honey. Not sure why I kept it." But Anna was already opening it. The lid creaked like it hadn't been moved in decades. Inside, wrapped in aging tissue paper, was a red envelope. Not sealed, but closed. A name was scrawled across the front in faded, almost invisible letters. Arthur Menezes. Anna froze. "Mum, isn't this the name of your boss?" From the kitchen, Donna Rosina dropped the towel by accident. She came rushing in, her face tense, her eyes locked onto the envelope. "Where did you find that?" "In the box. Who wrote it to him?" Donna Rosina took a deep breath. Her shoulders slumped like she was suddenly carrying 20 years of weight. She sat on the edge of the bed and looked at Anna with an expression the girl had never seen before. Guilt, tangled with fear. "Anna, I was going to tell you. One day, but not like this. Not so suddenly." "Tell me what, Mom?" The silence in the room was so heavy you could hear the ticking clock on the wall, like it was waiting too. I met Mr. Arthur many years ago, when he was still just a young guy from the countryside, full of dreams and drowning in debt. I worked in a cheap little hotel, cleaning rooms. He lived there while he was trying to do business in the city. Anna listened without blinking. We got involved, for a while, but it didn't last. He disappeared overnight, said he was moving to Brasilia. I never saw him again. Anna's eyes widened. "Mum, are you saying that—" Donna Rosina lowered her gaze, but didn't deny it. "I wrote that letter when I found out I was pregnant, but I never had the courage to send it. I thought he'd laugh in my face, or assume I just wanted his money." Anna stood frozen. "So, you're saying that maybe he's your father?" The words fell into the room like a thunderclap from a clear sky. The ground seemed to shift under Anna's feet. Suddenly, everything made sense. The strange look Arthur gave her at the end of the meeting, the way he avoided mentioning her the next day, the weird sense of familiarity she had felt standing next to him. But before she could process any of it, she asked, her voice shaking, "Mom, why didn't you tell me before?" "Because I wasn't sure, and because I never wanted you to grow up thinking the world owed you something. I wanted you to make it on your own." Anna clutched the envelope like it was a live wire. Now what? Show it to the man who barely knew she existed? Give him the letter? Make a scene? She didn't know. All she knew was that nothing would ever be the same again. And what she didn't know was that the very next day, Arthur himself would show up at their front door because of one unexpected phone call from the HR department. Some things feel like bad jokes, wrapped in silence and soaked in shame. Arthur Menezes, the millionaire who couldn't even order coffee in English, was now about to face something no translator in the world could interpret. His past, knocking at the door, asking to come in. It was Thursday, 11 in the morning. Arthur's phone rang. It was HR. "Mr. Arthur, good morning. Sorry to bother you, but something a bit delicate happened. One of your employees, Anna Beatrice, accessed an old personnel record yesterday, something with a name similar to yours. Apparently, she pulled some confidential data related to her mother, who also works here. Come again. It wasn't serious. We just thought you should know. She printed a document and took it home. Probably just a coincidence, but silence. Not the kind of silence that thinks. The kind that feels. Arthur hung up without saying a word. He walked slowly to the presidential balcony, lit a cigarette, something he only did during emotional emergencies, and stared down at the city far below. He thought of the girl, her way of speaking, that strange sense of familiarity, the way she had walked into that boardroom and taken command without knowing it. Something never sat right. And now? Records, names, janitor mother, HR alerts. His heart, hardened from years of market deals and corporate games, skipped a beat. He didn't speak to anyone, just got in the car and told the driver to take him to an address he had pulled from Anna's file. It wasn't far, but it felt like 1,000 miles from the penthouse where he lived. He got out, knocked, hard. Rain had started to fall again, tapping on the cracked pavement like nervous fingers. Donna Rosina opened the door and froze. She saw a man she had once known in another life. He wore a suit, had more grey hair, looked tired, but his eyes were still the same. "May I come in?" She hesitated, then stepped aside. In the small, humble living room, Anna sat on the couch with the red envelope in her lap. When she saw Arthur, she jumped to her feet. I want to know what's going on here," he said sharply with no filter. The tension in the room could be cut with a knife. The muted TV blinked like a lost lighthouse in a storm. "I found a letter, Mr. Arthur," Anna said calmly. "A letter my mother wrote. To you. And I need to know. I need to understand if it's true." Arthur turned to Rosina. They stared at each other for long seconds. And in that thick, painful silence, everything was there. The years of abandonment, the shame, the fear, and a guilt that never left. "Are you saying that this girl is my daughter?" Rosina lowered her eyes. "I'm saying that she might be, but if there's anything that needs to be sorted, it's between you and me. She has nothing to do with our past." Anna stepped forward. "I don't want money, or your name, or inheritance. I just want to know who I am, and why. Why you never knew." Arthur took a deep breath. For the first time in a long time, he didn't have a ready answer. There was no speech, no legal argument, no calculation to patch up the hole in his chest. "Because I didn't know you existed, and if I had, I probably would have messed up anyway. Back then I was just a kid with money and a swollen ego. I wasn't a man yet." Anna clutched the envelope tighter. "I spent my life hearing I was the daughter of an unknown father, but now I'm standing in front of the man who might be him. And honestly, I wish it weren't true, because if it is, you'll have to see me as a person." The sentence hit Arthur like a punch to the stomach. He looked around. The house was simple but full of dignity. Each photo on the wall, each crocheted towel, told the story of someone who built a life with what they had, not with leftovers. But the worst was yet to come. The very next day, Anna was called back to the company, not by the board, but by a legal assistant, who handed her an official notice. She was being suspended for breach of conduct. Reason? Unauthorized access to internal documents. Yeah. The world preaches meritocracy, but when a poor girl rises too fast, someone always tries to pull the ladder. What they didn't know was that Anna had already climbed too far to fall back to the ground, and she was about to prove she wasn't just a janitor's daughter or a millionaire's child. She was the heir to a truth no one in that company was ready to swallow. Sometimes the world doesn't just knock you down, it stomps you while you're down. Ina, who just days ago was invisible in the corridors of that glass tower, was now the main topic of whispered gossip. From the janitor's daughter, she had become the boss's maybe daughter. And that, my friend, makes a lot of powerful people uncomfortable. The suspension came like a slap. A cold, bureaucratic notice dressed up in legalese and fake politeness. They claimed she'd violated company policy by accessing confidential records. But Anna knew, and you already know, this wasn't about rules. It was about power, because powerful people hate having their past exposed, especially by someone they always look down on. That Friday morning, Anna left the company building without raising her head. She didn't cry, but her silence, it screamed. The same employees who used to smile at her in the break room now avoided eye contact. The interns whispered. Even her mother, Donna Rosina, walked with smaller steps, trying to disappear into the corners of the walls. At home, Anna locked herself in her room. She unclipped her company badge from her blouse and laid it on the table, looked at it like it was a ghost from a past that wasn't even over yet. Then she pulled out the old cardboard box again, the one with the photos, the tapes, the hidden history. She began digging, searching for anything that could give her answers, some clue, some thread. That's when she found it. A small folded black and white photo, its edges yellowed by time. It showed a young man, shirt half open, messy hair, broad smile. Next to him, a slim woman laughing with a plastic cup in hand. Behind them, a sign that read, Hotel Guapare, 1999. Anna flipped the photo over. On the back, a handwritten note in simple, shaky letters. Artur, our last night at the Guapare. She pressed the photo to her chest. She didn't know if she was angry, sad, or just empty. She felt like an orphan again, only this time from a father who might have been just a few floors away her entire life. In the living room, Donna Rosina listened to the silence seeping from Anna's bedroom like someone hearing screams no one else could. She made coffee, no sugar, just how Anna liked, but her hands trembled holding the cup. "Sweetheart," she called softly through the door. "I don't want to talk, Mom." "I understand," she whispered. "I just want you to know that I love you. And if I could go back, I'd do everything different." From the other side came a quiet, sharp reply. "That's the problem, Mum. Everyone wants to go back, but no one wants to fix things now." Rosina stepped away, eyes wet. She sat on the couch, defeated. She knew Anna's pain wasn't just about the suspension, or even the mystery of her father. It was the pain of not belonging, of having no place to plant her name and say, "Here, this is where I come from." Meanwhile, across the city, Artur Menezes sat alone in his office. His view of the city didn't bring him peace. His phone buzzed, emails stacked up, but his thoughts were far on Anna. He remembered something no one else knew, a tiny detail from the past, a gold necklace with a little star pendant. Rosina had left it behind in that hotel room decades ago. He never threw it away. He kept it hidden in a vault, like a wound he never dared to reopen. That night, he took it out for the first time in years, ran his fingers over the dull metal, and for the first time, he cried, not because he was weak, but because denial had finally cracked. Yet pride is a loud voice in a man like Artur. "This is all coincidence," he told himself. "Just a smart girl who studied hard. She's using the name to get ahead." It was a lie, and it hurt more every time he said it. Meanwhile, Anna was packing her bag. She needed to leave, disappear for a few days, clear her mind, find herself. She went to the one place her mum always said she could start over, Aunt Nair's house, a tiny place in a remote village where cell service barely worked and silence reigned like a queen. She needed space, even from her own pain. What she didn't know was that it was in that silence, away from everything, that the truth would finally come knocking, with a detail not even Artur remembered anymore. Sometimes you have to get lost in the middle of nowhere to finally figure out where you belong. And Anna, that cold morning, sitting on the porch of Aunt Nair's little house in the countryside, with the smell of burning firewood and crickets chirping too loud, started to hear something she hadn't in a long time, herself. The house was small, with a low roof, creaky wooden door, and a hammock stretched between two faded blue cement columns. This forgotten corner of the map became Anna's temporary refuge. She spent her days reading old books from a dusty shelf, helping Aunt Naya bake cornbread on the wood stove, and trying, unsuccessfully, to stop thinking about Arthur Menezes. But on the third day, right after breakfast, something changed. Aunt Naya, an old woman with slow words and deep eyes that saw through people, showed up holding a shoebox. "I found this last night, going through some of your grandpa's old stuff. I think it's yours." Anna opened it carefully. Inside, wrapped in yellowed tissue, was a little handmade rag doll with black yarn hair, patched clothes, and crooked embroidered eyes. Sewn into her chest, in shaky stitches, a name, Anina. "Your mom made that when she was pregnant. She spent weeks embroidering that name. Then one day, she came home crying. Said the doll would have a different name now, that the father had vanished, and you were going to grow up with another story." Anna held the doll tight. She didn't cry, she didn't speak, but something in her shifted. That night, she finally understood what her mother had never said out loud. The abandonment happened before she was even born. Late that afternoon, as she walked barefoot through the backyard dirt, she heard the gate creak open. She turned. A black company car, engine running, the window rolled down, and in the back seat, him, Arthur. No arrogance this time, no bodyguards, no pressed suit. Just a man who looked tired, older, softer, and human. He stepped out, no tie, shirt slightly wrinkled, in his hand a small velvet box. Anna stood still, the doll still in her arms. They stared at each other in silence. Then he spoke, softly. "I'm not here to apologize, or to convince you of anything. I just came to return something I kept for too long." He handed her the box. She opened it, the star necklace. Anna didn't say anything. Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. And then, in the lowest voice Arthur had ever used, he said, "I remember the day she left it behind, and I remember never having the courage to give it back. Now I know. It was yours all along." She clenched her jaw, blinked hard. "Why now?" He swallowed dry. "I saw that photo, the one of the hotel, and I had the HR pull your file again. I did a DNA test." Anna looked at him. Her whole life was a storm in that one stare. Arthur breathed in deeply. "It's positive." Silence. Even the crickets went quiet. Anna looked down, the rag doll in one hand, the necklace in the other, and finally she said, "So the man who suspended me now wants to be my father?" Arthur blinked fast. Shame flushed his face. "No, the man who suspended you is learning how to be a man, to be a father. I'll still have to earn it." She nodded slowly. "I'm your daughter, but I'm much more than that. I'm the girl who studied without books, learned English with subtitles, and faced a room full of suits with her head up. Now, I'm the woman who decides what to do with her own story." He nodded. "If you'll let me, I want to start slow, to know you, to listen." Anna turned her back, walked to the porch, sat on the hammock, took a long, deep breath, and said, without turning to face him, "A hammock swings for two, if the person knows how to get in right. If not, it flips you off." He understood, smiled for the first time, took off his shoes, sat carefully on the other end. No titles, no contracts, no inheritance, just two people finally beginning again. And as the wind rocked the hammock beneath the pink dusk sky, Anna looked up and whispered, "You see this, Mom?" The doll pressed against her chest. Her name's Anina again. And on that quiet porch, the hammock didn't just rock two bodies. It rocked an entire past into a new future. Some people are born invisible. They walk the halls in silence, speak softly so they don't bother anyone, eat fast so they don't take up space. Anna was one of those people. But now she was more than a person. She was a symbol, and you don't silence a symbol without the world noticing. When she returned to the company after that visit in the village, Anna wasn't the same girl. She didn't walk faster to avoid stares. She didn't hide behind polite smiles. She walked like someone who had something no one else in that building did: truth. Arthur had already lifted her suspension quietly, but the damage had been done. What he thought was an internal correction had become a public scandal. The following Monday, the union showed up, with 2 lawyers and a formal complaint against the board of directors. Charges: moral harassment and retaliation against an employee for alleged personal connections to the company president. And then, it exploded. What was once breakroom gossip was now headline news. Blogs, HR forums, workplace equality channels. Everyone wanted a piece of the story. Bilingual employee suspended after discovering she's the CEO's daughter. The press loved it, and the market panicked. Shares fell. Investors called in, furious. The board demanded answers. And in the very same boardroom where it all began, now sat lawyers, shareholders, and a chair left empty, waiting for Anna Beatriz, summoned to testify in the internal inquiry. Arthur was there, still, no jacket, sweating, silent for once. Anna entered. Beside her, a young lawyer, black with a high bun and a voice that carried weight. Anna sat with calm dignity, no arrogance, only clarity. And when they began, she was ready. Miss Anna, do you confirm that you accessed internal files without authorization? I confirm I accessed my own file and my mother's. I had partial access clearance as part of the admin support team. Nothing was breached. And do you confirm you found a letter addressed to Mr. Arthur Meneses? Yes, but the letter was in my mother's possession, not on any company system. The company's attorney cleared his throat. And do you admit to using this information to emotionally manipulate the president? Anna gave a slight, calm smile. The manipulation didn't come from the letter. It came from the silence, and from a suspension that had nothing to do with policy and everything to do with fear. The room went still. Then Arthur raised his hand. Stop questioning her. Question me. He stood slowly. I was wrong, not just for suspending Anna, but for living decades pretending to be someone I wasn't. You can judge me, fire me, but this girl, she didn't ask for anything. She only wanted the truth. One director snapped, "Do you realize what this is doing to our reputation? We're losing millions." Arthur looked him in the eye. "And how many millions pay for a daughter's dignity?" Silence. "This company is mine, but truth belongs to no one, and if everything has to fall, let it fall standing on the truth." Anna looked at him, really looked. She saw the man behind the empire, not perfect, not polished, but finally real. A few days later, the inquiry was closed. Anna was reinstated. The union released a public statement praising her composure, and Arthur, he called a press conference. Standing behind the podium with no script, no teleprompter, he said, "This company was built by a man who didn't speak English, but today he learned a new language, truth, and the one who taught me was my daughter." Applause broke out, some timid, some teary. But in the back, watching from the employees' lounge, Anna smiled, because for the first time she didn't have to hide. Everyone knew now. But what she would do with this new place at the table, that was still a secret she had been planning quietly, a plan that wouldn't just change her life, but the future of the company, and of many others like her. There are things in life you can't buy, can't inherit. You build, brick by brick, word by word. And right then, what Anna Beatriz wanted most wasn't status, wasn't money, wasn't revenge, it was roots. So, in the same week as the press conference, she asked for a meeting with Arthur, not as a daughter, not as a victim, but as a professional with a proposal. They sat in a quiet room at the company's foundation, far from the boardrooms and the tension. She held a notebook full of notes. Her eyes had a different spark. "I want to create a training program for kids from the outskirts. A free language center, inside the company." Arthur raised an eyebrow. "Languages, English, French, Spanish, not just grammar, pronunciation, culture, real-life practice. Most of these kids never get hired because they don't speak the language of the market. I know. I was one of them." She flipped the notebook, charts, data, case studies. But what caught Arthur's eye wasn't the numbers. It was a phrase written boldly in red ink. "We don't want favors. We want tools. This isn't charity, Mr. Arthur, It's responsibility, real transformation. He didn't reply at first. He stared at the notebook, then at her, and nodded. Do it, but do it your way, and name it after you. Because now, you have a name. Months later, the company inaugurated the Ana Beatriz Center for Bilingual Development, and in her opening speech, Ana said, "My English didn't come from fancy schools. It came from nights without power, watching pirated movies with subtitles. And still, it brought me here. Now imagine what we can do with structure, respect, and opportunity. The enrollments exploded. Sons of janitors, sons of drivers, sons of nobody. Now they had a bridge. Ana, now director of the program, walked the halls with a different posture. Not higher, deeper. Because now she knew. Belonging isn't about being accepted. It's about showing up with dignity. Every time she saw someone new arrive with fear in their eyes, she'd smile and say, "The first word in English you'll learn here is welcome, because in this place, you belong." But Ana didn't know. Something even deeper was coming. Something no badge or diploma could prepare her for. Something that involved forgiveness and blood. It started with a phone call. "Hello? Is this Ana Beatriz?" "Speaking. Who is this?" "My name is Helena. I'm your sister." Silence. Helena explained. She was Arthur's daughter from his second marriage, about Anna's age, and until that month she had no idea Anna even existed. "He told me everything, and I just wanted to meet you, if you'll let me." They met at a quiet city park. Anna got there first, heart pounding like a drum. Helena arrived soon after. She had Arthur's eyes. But everything else about her was different. They talked for hours, childhoods, books, music. Helena said she never imagined having a sister, that she thought life was too simple, until she heard Anna's story. At the end of the day, Anna looked into her eyes and said, "I'm still figuring out what to do with all this, but maybe we can start with a hug." Under the dripping trees, two women, born from the same blood but raised in different worlds, began stitching their fates together. Every story ends eventually. And Arthur Menezes, after all his mistakes, crashes, and attempts to fix the unfixable, finally understood that the greatest legacy a man can leave isn't money, it's people. A sudden heart attack took him one quiet Tuesday morning. He died at home. No silk sheets, no board meetings, just black coffee and toast. The city stopped. The company went into mourning. But the greatest shock wasn't his death. It was what was in his will. "I leave half my fortune to my daughter, Ana Beatriz. The other half will fund the Invisible Voices Foundation. And I ask that Ana never become just an heiress, but a bridge." Ana didn't cry at the funeral. She cried later, alone, holding the little gold star necklace. She understood then that there was no one left in front to lead. Now, she was the one guiding. The bilingual center was renamed Instituto Estrella, in memory of the necklace lost and found. Ana traveled Brazil with the project, gave speeches, wrote a book, changed laws. But her favorite moment was always the same, walking into a classroom and asking, "Who here thinks they weren't born to succeed?" A few hands, timid, would go up, and she'd smile and say, "I used to think that too," until the day I walked into a boardroom full of foreigners and opened my mouth, because some people are born invisible, but they were never meant to live in the shadows. So, what did you think of this story, huh? Leave your comment below, hit that like to help the channel, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this one. Until next time, from your Vovo Rico.